Hi guys, welcome back. I know it's been a while since my last Plan With Me video, but I am back for September. And for this month's Plan With Me, I will be using these pens that I recently received from Karin Markers. These are from their new line of pens, which are the Pigment Decobrush pens, which are basically brush pens, but instead of ink, they have paint inside them. So the inspiration behind this month's theme is honestly the House of Sunny cardigans. If you don't know what the House of Sunny cardigans are, they are these cute and trendy cardigans with bold and graphic prints of landscapes in cute and pastel palettes. And I think the vibes that they give off are very warm and radiates positivity. And since I am going back to online school for September, I thought that the positive vibes from my bullet journal would make up for the negativity that I will be getting this new semester. As you can see, I'm trying out a different art style for this month's theme. I think that it's very different from the doodle heavy and outlined illustrations that I usually do for my previous months. I think that these color blocks make the illustration look very bold and graphic, and as if it was done with gouache paints. And if you don't know what gouache is, it's this kind of paint that's really opaque and just gives you these very smooth and crisp lines. And I think that these Pigment Decobrush markers give you the same effect as gouache would, since the ink used on these pens are very pigmented and opaque as well, which makes them perfect for layering, since the lighter colors, you could still draw them on top of the darker colors and you could still see them. And you wouldn't really get this kind of effect when you use your normal markers, such as your Crayola Super Tips or your Tombos, which is why I use these markers for this month's theme. Since the ink on these markers are very pigmented and opaque, you could really do some layering with them as if you were using gouache paints. As you can see with these lime green and pink leaves, I was still able to draw them on top of the purple and dark green background, and you could still visibly see them. I know that it looks kind of patchy, but you'll see later on in the video that after one more layer, the illustration starts to look a lot more opaque. I added in this kind of intense sky background, and I think that it made the illustration look more bold and graphic, which was the main goal I was going for. It kind of reminds me of a certain type of art style, but I can't name it. But this color palette does remind me of those garden paintings by Matisse, and I love that. Here you'll see me adding in more layers on top of the plant drawings I did before, and as you can see, they turned out looking a lot more brighter and more solid. I also added in these pink clouds and more plants on the bottom. I honestly don't know what plants these are. I just filled in the spaces since I really don't like blank space on my illustrations. So I just filled them out with these sort of like lavender drawings. But they're just like stems with dots on them, and I think that it went with the vibe of this illustration. I added in white details on the trees to make it look like bark. I also added in white details on the pink cloud, since I thought that the pink I used was kind of harsh, so I softened it with the white. I also added in highlights and shadows on the hills. Oh, here I added in this orange outline on the pink plant, and you'll see me later that I regretted it, so I covered it up. I'm adding in these trees to make it look fuller, since I really don't like empty space on my illustrations. Here you'll see me drawing on top of the orange with the pink, and it still covered it up. I was honestly starting to freak out during this part of the clip since I started not liking the illustration. So I added in some final touches, more layers to make the elements look more opaque. I also added in some white dots to look like sparkles to make it look more magical, I guess. I also used this white Uniball Signo pen to add in these outlines on top of the plants to make the illustration look less flat. And since there's kind of a lot happening on the bottom part, the white outlines kind of separated the plants from each other, which made the illustration look less cluttered. I just added in more finishing touches, and now for the satisfying part. Here's the part where I remove the tape, and here you'll see those fine crisp lines, which is just a big fat chef's kiss. I put these clips on real time so that it's a lot more satisfying to watch. I ended up not liking these pathways, so I covered them up with the markers, and as you can see, the markers do a really great job in covering up your mistakes. I added in more trees to make the illustration look less empty since I don't like that. And as you can see, I'm using the same washi tape trick for the title part of this cover page, and I'm using this very gorgeous chartreuse color for the name of the month. I'm using my Tombow Fudinosuke, and I'm just doing it in this cursive lettering, nothing too bold since the illustration part is already very bold. More white dots to make it look more magical. And that is it for the cover page. On the other side of the spread will be a coat page, and as you can see, I also use the same washi tape trick on this illustration, but since it's a circle, I had to use a bunch of small tiny pieces of washi tape. And it kind of reminded me of this one geometric theory that said that a circle is basically a polygon, but it has like an infinite amount of very, very tiny straight lines. But that's just food for thought. Moving on to the illustration, I did this kind of waterfall design. I don't know why I did a waterfall design. I think I saw a waterfall illustration while doing this and got inspired, so I went with a waterfall illustration. But it's kind of like a circle, and I kind of framed it with these trees, which kind of make it look like you're looking at it from a telescope, I guess. I added in this intense sky again to add in that pop of pink and yellow to make it look more interesting, I guess. And more plants. I started not liking the illustration again, so I just added in more layers of the markers to make the illustration more opaque, since I really didn't like that it looked very translucent. I also added in more plants in the bottom, and I also used more of my white Uniball Signo to add in more white dots and sparkles to make it more interesting for me. This peeling off the washi tape part isn't that satisfying, so I'm not gonna put it in real time. But yeah, as you can see, it's a clean circle, and I added in these extra doodles to make it look like these elements are going out of the shape, and I think that it makes it look more interesting, more visually interesting. And since I have blank space, I added in washi tape. These washi tapes are from the washi tape shop, and this abstract washi tape that I have has the exact same palette as this theme, so I think that it worked perfectly fine, and I love that. I added in these trees. In hindsight, I kind of don't like the trees since there aren't really trees near waterfalls, I guess, but that's that. Onto the monthly log. Just like on the cover page, I use the washi tape trick so that I have clean lines on the illustrations. Some of you might freak out that I'm wasting this much washi tape, but I barely use this washi tape, so at least now I have some use for this blue grid washi tape that I barely use. For this layout, I wanted it to look like a stage setting, like a, I don't know what you call it, like a play setting, a play set for a play, a setting for a play, that like a scenery for a play. I don't know what you call it, but that. And it kind of reminds me of Sound of Music, like the palette and the vibes. So I guess that's cute. Now I'm adding in more plants on the bottom since I really don't like empty space. So yeah, more plants, and it's very easy for me to add them in since the ink on these markers are just really pigmented, very opaque, and you can still see them on top of the dark green and dark purple backgrounds. I'm adding in more trees. I honestly don't know what you call these trees. I think they're called fir trees. And I'm doing this kind of technique to make it look more artsy, where I add in a lighter color, and then while the ink of the lighter color is still dry, I mix it in using the white marker. You'll see it later. And now I'm adding in these pink clouds, and I thought that these clouds looked kind of harsh, so I softened them with the white marker, which make it look like watercolor painting, which I love. And since there was leftover pink ink on the white marker, I scribbled it on the page, and they look like lighter colored clouds, which gave the drawing more depth to it, I guess. Now I'm adding in the boxes for each day of the week. I intentionally didn't include the last 4 days of September since they would go on top of the floral design, and I didn't want to ruin that design, so I just settled with 26 days for this calendar, and I think it's fine. Here's some more visual ASMR of me peeling off the washi tape. And I'm just adding in more of the white outlines. I'm using the Uniball Signo Broad since it's more juicy than the usual Uniball Signo. I think that the white outlines really add something to the illustration and makes it look more visually interesting and less cluttered. Now you'll see me adding in these white dots on top of the calendar boxes, and this is where I'm gonna put the numbers for the days of the month. But you'll see later that I tried to write on it with the Fudenosuke and the gel pen, and none of them would sit properly, so I had to cover them with a black paint pen and added in the numbers with white gel pen instead. And we are done with a monthly log. I honestly love how it turned out. And now let's move on to the next page. I usually do my trackers for this part of the setup, my mood and habit trackers, but recently I have noticed that I have been barely using my habit and mood trackers. Actually, for the past 2 months, I didn't do any mood trackers, and I find habit trackers kind of irrelevant for my lifestyle now since I always do those habits, so I don't think I need any accountability trackers for them, which I think is fine. And is the great thing about bullet journaling, because you could change it up according to your needs. So for the left part of this spread, I'm gonna do a brain dump page instead, and for the right part is a monthly highlights spread. It's different from the 1 line a day spread that I used to do before, since I'm just gonna write down here relevant stuff that happened to me this month. Let's say, for example, I got a brand new pair of shoes that I really wanted, so I'm gonna put them down, and instead of writing down I got new shoes, I'm gonna draw them down. Like, I'm gonna draw a pair of shoes to say that I got new shoes. Just more clips of me peeling off the washi tape, and we are done for this month's setup. Now it's time for the final flip through.